to me, this all looks good. This looks like a foot that's
It does,
growing
doesn't it?
and trying to do its thing. You've got kind of a toe callus wanting to form here, which is really hard to get in Florida in the summertime.
So that means she's bearing weight on that toe.
She's using it, yes.
That's amazing.
The challenge comes with, if you want your toe shorter, you don't want to just rip that callus out. But we're not really fighting a long toe on this foot anymore.
We're fighting more of a narrow heel a little bit still.
Yeah, and you know, some of that is hard to alleviate when you have your internal pain from your navicular issues.
She's no longer on bute. We gave her bute, 2 milligrams for a couple days when she first had her osteo cushion injection.
So I'm just going to bring these heels back just a little, and we always fight her being high laterally on both front. Dr. Barrett here again. I am with Lena and Kit Kat. This is about our, what, 4th, 5th visit? Something like that.
Maybe even 6.
Couple little rechecks in between here and there. And kind of a quick summary of where we've been with her. This mare's diagnosed with navicular disease of the left front foot, which interestingly is in some ways the better of our 2 feet. Conformational anyway. It's a little bit narrower, but we don't struggle with that foot as much. And the right front, as you'll see here in a little bit, tends to really be low-heeled, long-toed, broken back hoof pasternexus, the whole song and dance that we see. So I started out with shoes on her. Primarily, I thought it would be nice to get her barefoot, but we just did not have the sole mass at that point, and her walls weren't very good, so we started out casting something on the right foot, trying to float her heels, nailed on the left front. We got about 2 go-arounds of that. She wasn't really improving clinically as much as I would like, but we did get the response as far as sole mass. So at that point, we decided to roll the dice, pull her shoes, put her in boots, barefoot, whatever you want to call it. The boots didn't work out quite as well as we'd liked, and we, instead of going with a different boot selection, we've just opted to leave her barefoot and see what happens. And right now, I'm coming about every 2 weeks when I can get here to trim her. And in the meantime, she's touching up her toes a little bit, just hitting her with a rasp. So our goal now is to try and get these toes shortened up and brought back. And when you have a barefoot, or a shod foot, the more often you trim them, the shorter you can get that foot, which is why, going back to our wild horse studies, they all have really short toes. That's because they're constantly wearing them and they don't ever have a chance to build up a big long toe and a lot of sole mass that lengthens the actual live vascular supply in there. You have to get all of that kind of shrunk back down into place. So that's what we're doing, trying to get her feet trimmed every few days. So after working on feet for all these years, if a horse can't go barefoot for whatever reason, and there's some of them that just simply can't do it, there's a million different ways and types of glue-on shoes now, and there's different hoof wraps, casts if you will, and those can be of great benefit. But for me to manage a foot long term, like if I'm gonna glue on any type of shoe, it doesn't matter what kind it is, here in Florida anyway, I'm thinking I've got about 2 go-arounds with this glue-on shoe, and I want to get them out of this and into something else. And my final synopsis after doing it all is, once I get a horse to where I can nail on a pair of steel shoes and have some sort of support, a lot of times it's simply a leather pad, that's when I have the most option that I feel like I can manage these feet long term. Nothing else, everything else presents a continuing set of challenges, and it doesn't mean every horse is going to be fine with, a pair of nail-on shoes and leather pads. All right, so you can see on this foot we have low heels, kind of a big long run forward toe. So technically, that's defined as a long toe, and this is a whole nother topic or discussion. But you have to consider there's 2 ways that you measure the toe length. Excuse me. One is how much foot is out ahead of or cranial to the tip of the coffin bone, and the other is vertical depth. And her is probably a combination of both. So that's where radiographs come in handy, and also looking at the bottom of the foot will help tell you that. But you can see this frog is a little bit stretched. It looks like this whole foot is just running forward, which is what we've been dealing with. She's been dealing with for multiple years. To be honest, probably this mare's whole life, actually. So what I'm trying to figure out is what we need to do to trim on this foot to help it out a little bit. And just first glance, there's not much that needs to be done. So I'm going to hoof test her here, and if you can see, I don't know if it comes through on the video, this whole foot is moving around here, around my hoof testers. So that's telling me we don't have a whole lot of foot to take. We're fairly solid here. This is the sole callus, toe callus, whatever you want to call it. And that's usually built up in response to being used. So it's kind of a dilemma if we want to back this toe up, but we don't want to rip all of this sole depth out. Tip of our coffin bone is going to be somewhere back under here. So this is not directly under the tip of the coffin bone. But this is just a sign the foot's kind of trying to protect itself. So I really don't want to take much more than this out. And if she had a good looking foot, you know, if we looked at her from the side and we liked how it was balanced, I wouldn't even be messing around with this. But what I'm going to do is just take this toe back a little bit. There's not a lot of flaring to remove here. I'm just going to round this up, smooth out our hoof wall, and back this toe up just a little bit. I know I just said I don't want to take off a bunch of the dorsal wall for the sake of toe length or breakover, but I'm just going to round it up real well. And if we could get to where we could make this happen every 7 days, I think would really help this foot. That's kind of about it.
So we're progressing forward in a positive manner. Every time it's a little bit improvement. It didn't happen overnight. It won't go away overnight. So I am very grateful for his skill and his expertise, and for the first time in 2.5 years, I see heel growth. It's there, it's real.
The challenge with this conformation and this type of foot, meaning low-heeled, long-toed, the hoof capsule, the foot just kind of sits in front of the limb too much. A long sloping hoof pastern axis contributes to that as well versus something that's more upright. So for me, it's kind of simple physics. If you just visualize the weight bearing, the force coming straight down through the limb and to the ground, that focus on her is in probably this much of the back part of her foot. So that's always under load, and then therefore the toes don't have as much pressure on them. So you're going to get vascular compression in the back part of the foot. You'll have more vascularization in the front half, so that allows your toes to grow and your heels to not grow as much because they're compressed. So throughout the shoeing cycle or the trim cycle, that just gets aggravated because the longer that toe grows, the more she rocks back, so to speak, the more broken back your hoof pastern axis is, the more negative your palmar angle becomes, and now it's just a perpetuating cycle. So the challenge is trying to get her out of this cycle to where we can get a little bit more heel growth and slow down the toe growth. And at some point we may end up going back to shoes when we have a little better foot and try to see if we can get a good float on her. I'm not sure exactly, but that's the mechanics that's at play in my mind.
Yeah, because one of the reasons we did go barefoot is because her hoof wall wouldn't tolerate it anymore. She had no substance of wall. So it's not that we wouldn't have maybe liked a different kind of shoe, it's just that we knew in order to put a shoe on, we had to have some kind of wall, which we're achieving.
And we're fortunate the foot's holding together as well as it is barefoot, because we're in the middle of summer here in Florida, and you can tell by this stuff that we wipe off every few seconds how hot and humid it is. So it makes it really challenging to rebuild a foot no matter what your ailment is this time of year. So right now we're kind of holding steady and getting it done. But this is not progress that's going to be measured dramatically in weeks or even a couple months. We're going to be working on these feet, trying to get them back around for the next 1.5 years at least.